Team up there.
Palmer.
Look at that. It says we're live, Sipple.
Okay. All right.
There we go. Welcome in. We are live. It's Parker and Sipple, Lincoln Journal Star, HuskerExtra.com. It is us behind the mask. We're still in the press box at Memorial Stadium here in Champaign, Illinois, where we just saw Nebraska open its season with a 30-22 loss against Illinois. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We'll give people a couple minutes to sort of filter in here. I'm guessing there'll be a lot of opinions, Sipple, probably strong ones. I'm interested in yours, but first, just a really brief recap. Illinois reeled off 28 straight points in the middle of the game, dominated the middle two quarters, had almost 21 minutes time of possession between the second and third quarter, controlled the game. And that was enough to hold off 14 fourth quarter points from Nebraska. What do you make of this? Where does your mind go after the season opens like this for Nebraska?
A couple places. I mean, Scott Frost, the fourth-year Nebraska coach, has a new boss, and the new boss was watching.
Yep.
And the new boss, remember you got to always keep in mind what the new boss said in July, that he wants to see strong attention to detail from all his coaches, and he wants to, in Scott's program, he wants to see incremental progress. He saw neither strong attention to detail today by Nebraska nor incremental progress.
Right.
What he saw was the same old. The attention to detail was especially concerning. Nebraska a critical fumble by Adrian Martinez, where it wasn't a bad luck fumble. He was holding the ball away from his body and got hit from behind. It was kind of a classic, you got to have the ball tucked.
Right.
And if he does have the ball close to his body on that play, it diminishes. I'm not saying he wouldn't have fumbled, but it would significantly diminish the chances. Instead, he has the ball out front. So those sort of things, Adrian was so. The offensive line, I don't know, Parker, of all the issues today, in some ways, I think the offensive line's lack of push might have been my most concerning thing.
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to get away from what Scott Frost said. I asked him first question of the news conference afterwards, what after an offseason where you focus so much on the small things. That's all we heard about the whole offseason, the controllables, the details, the small things, to come out and play so poorly in most of those facets. To me, is probably the most concerning thing, but the offensive line not far behind. I mean, they dealt with some injuries in camp, but injuries are a part of football. And Adrian Martinez had a 75-yard touchdown run late in the third quarter. And besides that, they ran 38 times for 85 yards. The longest,
Say that again.
37 carries for 85 yards outside the long touchdown run for Adrian Martinez.
37 for 85.
And
that's just, hey, Parker, think about what you're saying.
And the longest run by a running back on the day was 11 yards from Gabe Ervin in the first quarter.
Yeah,
right?
First quarter when they were down.
Right down here. So.
Yeah, they were in the shadow of their own end zone, and they got it. They popped a run. And I thought when Ervin popped that run, they might get it going.
Right.
Never did. Like you said, 37 carries for 85 yards besides Adrian Martinez's 75-yard run on a called pass play in which he pulled the ball down and found open space.
A lot of open space. He literally wasn't touched.
Right. He pulled it down, though. That was a pass play. That wasn't a run play.
It was. All right, should we get to some comments?
Yeah.
Justin says, good evening. Sucks it was a loss, but honestly, Bielema was a great coach and Lovey had talent on the roster. Just sad we couldn't put it together. Still, that's reason.
Kind. That's kind. I mean, this is a team. Illinois was 2-6 last year.
Yeah.
Illinois lost its last 3 games last year pretty convincingly. They lost to Penn State 56-21 to end last season. No, I wouldn't say this is a real good Illinois team.
Yeah. Well, the next comment we've got is terrible performance. Absolutely no excuse from Frost's fourth year. Team looks like a 3 or 4 win team.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say that right now. I mean, you never know. Okay, I mean, I'll tell you what. I wrote this a couple times in my column, if only to remind myself, you can't write off this team.
Right.
I mean, it's one game. There's no way you can write it off. But the issue is many of the things we saw today were things that have plagued the program for the last 3 years.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, outside of just getting beat like a drum 40-10 or something like that, If you were to tell me, okay, Nebraska's going to lose by 8, this is the 8-point loss, the version of an 8-point loss that I think for most Nebraska fans is like most concerning.
Yeah.
Because it looked so much like what their one possession losses have looked like the past 3 years.
Well, they didn't look particularly well coached. I mean, let's just say for what it is. They did not. There's a lot that goes into this. Scott had sort of a mission statement to his players last week that said the mission begins Saturday and it has to start with after Caleb Tanner's, as you mentioned, after Caleb Tanner's double penalty. As you mentioned, 28 straight points by Illinois. You would expect Nebraska to be more resilient as a program in the fourth year.
Yes.
You'd expect them to rebound.
Well, Austin Allen after the game called that penalty, that sequence, a death blow. You cannot have a death blow with 9 minutes left in the second quarter. But it started a 28-0 run for Illinois. And even though Nebraska sort of found its footing late in the game, I mean, I wrote it down somewhere. I think 242 out of 392 of Nebraska's yards came after they went down 30-9. And they weren't, you can't exactly call them empty calories because they turned them into points and they got the ball back with a minute left, down by 8. But you're chasing. I mean, you're chasing. They didn't run the ball hardly at all in the second half. They never committed to it. And this gets to Kent, his comment on YouTube. Can this coaching staff stay on a path for more than 5 plays? Is there any explanation for the running back rotation? Look like a game from 2018, 19, or 20. Martinez is mediocre at best. A lot of thoughts there. I'm interested in the path because they didn't commit to the run game. They couldn't get it going. And then they fell behind and they didn't try to really run the ball at all in the second half. And Frost said, well, that's sort of what happens in the Big Ten. One team gets ahead and can run the ball, which, I mean, sure, but you can't run the ball for 85 yards for a vast majority of the game and expect to win.
No. Odd. We expected even. Odd front. Expected even front. And that's what he basically said they just didn't adjust to it, or because they weren't ready, that set them back. I mean, come on.
Right.
There is that is the talk of a leader of an ordinary program.
Yeah.
I mean, you should be able to impose your will. That's a lot of Nebraska fans watch this program for years and years impose its will and never hear anybody say anything like that.
Right.
Well, they came out odd front, we expected even, and we never really recovered.
It's been sort of a common theme too over the past couple of years. We've heard this several times after games. Well, they did something we didn't expect them to do, and the adjustments just haven't come fast. I mean, that's the untrained eye talking, but the results speak for themselves. I mean,
right. This was a program that talked all August about a commitment. I mean, the undercurrent comments were about a commitment to a downhill run game.
Yeah.
And that you heard Ethan Piper. I'm not putting anything on Ethan Piper, but he said on Monday that that's what they're gearing up for. It's a downhill run game. He said downhill run game. Maybe Frost is right. They did get behind, but while they were not that far behind, they weren't getting anything going.
Well, they ran it 20 times for 39 yards in the first half.
20 times for 39 yards. They were not getting the push up front.
Yeah.
There were not holes. And that, again, like you said, that might be the most concerning thing about this.
One more from Kent, and then we'll get to some comments from Facebook. Kent said the sellout streak died today.
Yeah, come on. I mean, I don't think anybody's expecting a full house against Fordham. It would almost be weird. The pandemic, it's flipped that fast. And partially, let's face it, we're wearing masks. The pandemic, a lot of people won't want to come downtown and go into bars if they have to wear a mask. That'll keep people away. They won't want to be in a stadium full of people that there's some cover there. But let's face it, a lot of people are just, their loyalty is really being tested right now.
Yeah. If Nebraska come out and hammered Illinois today, it might have been close. It was going to be close. but I think they probably would have got it done. Alan says cataclysmic loss, gents. Cataclysmic, good word, Alan. And also says, do we revisit the starting quarterback situation? Well, I mean, Adrian Martinez definitely struggled at times today for sure. The fact of the matter is they've got two freshmen, neither of whom have played a snap of college football behind him. He's not. I mean, I'd be shocked. I mean, against Fordham, of course you want to hopefully, that's a game that you circle and say, hey, we want to get a bunch of young guys some time. But I don't think Adrian Martinez is going anywhere as a starter.
No, I don't think so either. Today he was 16 for 32 passing. Is it for 232?
232, yeah.
Yeah, one touchdown, no picks. Now, what was his running number?
111 yards and a touchdown on 17 carries. Easily led the team in carries again. Almost had as many carries as the three running backs combined. But 75 of the 111 came on one carry. So outside the long touchdown run, he was 16 for 36.
Yeah. I mean, it was an ordinary performance by Adrian. The fumble was a critical blow. He rebounded pretty well, I thought, and didn't play. I don't think he played a game that would jeopardize his status as a starter. That's just me.
Frost brought up a great point, though. I mean, the miss to Lever in the end zone when they ended up kicking a field goal to make it 9-2. So if you hit that, Lever was wide open. It's 13-2. And Frost said, you can talk about penalties, you can talk about this, you can talk about that. At the end of the day, they missed one, and Illinois hit one on the long play down to the 1 yard line.
Now Baz, our writer Chris Basnet, thought that pass wasn't bad. That Lever didn't run under it, didn't keep running.
Yeah, and maybe that's true. Frost just said you just got to find a way to get that. Yeah, I mean, that's got to be a touchdown. He's wide open.
It's probably on both of them.
It's probably on both of them. And you don't execute on one end. Illinois executes on the other on the 45-yarder down to the 1 yard line. And in a close game, that can be the difference, even with all of the other stuff that happened. Let's see what happens if they blow next week's game. Andrew, you're really going to a worst case scenario there with Fordham coming to town. But I think I'm going to take your question and twist it just a little bit, Andrew. Sipple, I mean, it's like you say, it can't be a season crusher, right? I mean, you have to find a way to rebound from this.
Right. I hope that players don't react like fans do. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't.
Generally not. There was a couple, the players that materialized. I would say that Cam Jurgens was angry. Yeah. I would say that Luke Reimer was angry. There was no excuses. These guys are tired of it. Now, it's a little concern. Ross has to figure out a way to inject some joy into this discussion. It really hit me talking to Luke Reimer and Jurgens. They were just angry. They didn't really feel like they certainly weren't in excuse mode. Yeah. They said, we got to make it happen. And they weren't, I don't know. Here's what my concern would be is if I were Frost. All the things that Frost and his staff have been teaching them aren't really paying off. Right. That at some point the players have to gain confidence in what they're being taught and how they're being instructed, because it's not working out on the field. Frost is 12-21. Right. They were 4-8, or they're 3-5 last season. They're just not. They're not winning games.
Yeah, and I asked him that after the game. I asked him, when you spend the off season coaching and working on these details to such a degree, and then it looks, as he said, like the same movie from years past, do you have to think about changing something? And he said, no, they're going to.
Interesting in the post game, I thought.
Yeah.
Somewhat interesting, pleasant, because he, like you said, he kind of had to be pleasant compared to a lot of people were talking about his Monday news conference. He was much different. He stood up and answered the questions today. I found some of his answers to be somewhat concerning, to be honest. Yeah. he doesn't seem to accept a lot of responsibility. You know, he told his players this can't be the same movie as last year. Well,
Yeah.
I know I sound like I'm being a little harsh, but this was concerning.
Well,
sure.
it's not. It shouldn't be a rebuilding project anymore, right?
No.
It's the 4th year. You had the pandemic in there, sure, but I mean, you know, it was the 33rd game of Frost's tenure here. You know,
and this is Illinois. We're at a stadium that wasn't nearly full against a team that, again, I believe they're 2-6 last year. Am I right about that?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean they finished the season with 3 straight losses after beating Nebraska. It's not a team this isn't regarded as an Illinois team that's kind of challenged for
with a first-year head coach in Brett Bielema, who, you know, this is his home state. He's here to try to build this thing, and they came out and they got not spectacular, but quality play from 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah,
including a backup, Artur Sikowski, who probably played the best ball of his career today.
But
they ran the ball pretty well.
Yeah.
They didn't turn it over. They had it for 35 minutes. Like there was don't get me wrong, it wasn't 2011 Wisconsin with Russell Wilson where he was helming that team, but it had some of the characteristics of a Brett Bielema team.
It did.
They held the ball. They went on a big drive to open the 3rd quarter. And some of that's happenstance. That's how a game goes. But you saw some of those characteristics in game 1.
I know. And hey, now I think you do got to give credit to Artur. Is it Arthur or Artur?
Well, there's no H.
Yeah, Art Sikowski. But as Bass pointed out, and this is a guy who couldn't hold on to the starting job at Rutgers.
Yeah.
He was the starter.
He was, and then Noah Vedral supplanted him.
Right. So he couldn't hold on to the starting job at Rutgers. He couldn't win the starting job here, but he could come in here against Nebraska's veteran defense and complete 11 of his first 12 passes for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a veteran defense. He's a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
All right. Come on. I mean, I give him credit, but man, is that what you'd expect?
That's where, yeah, right. Exactly. Okay. We're going to get a few more in before we get out of here. Steve says the loss wasn't as bad as it seems, but it's still a loss. Going against a new coach is difficult. Yeah, I mean, we heard some of that after the game. Justin, why did Adrian throw off his back foot all day? Yeah, Justin, I'll be interested to go back and watch some of the, go back and watch it again where you can sort of slow it down a little bit. It's a lot of the passing stuff for Nebraska today. It seemed like they were making an effort to get down the field more, and it's just a lot of long developing stuff. And then the protection was okay sometimes. I'm curious upon review if Scott and Mario Verduzco will think that Adrian held onto the ball too long at times, if the receivers struggle to separate, if there are protection issues, or most likely some combination of all that. Because it just didn't seem, there weren't very many times where you thought like, oh, they're in rhythm offensively.
No.
Really not. I mean, hardly at all. Even the 19-play, 91-yard scoring drive was like penalty, big play, negative play, bad snap. It's sort of like they scored despite themselves, essentially.
Rhythm? No, they never really found a rhythm.
Well, did you find anything you want to get to here, Sipple?
Let me see.
Here's Chris. Serious question. Who's the leader of this team?
Yeah. Well, the captains.
Yeah.
Are Adrian Martinez, Cam Taylor Britt, Austin Allen, and Damian Daniels.
Yeah.
Those are the captains. That's the obvious answer. I don't know. They have to be the leaders.
I was thinking about this. Does it make it easier in a way to think about correcting some of the mistakes when a couple of the major ones came from Cam Taylor Britt fielding that ball at the 1-yard line and taking the safety, and Adrian Martinez on the fumble because they're captains? Or is it a bigger concern because your most veteran players and your best players are making those kind of mistakes?
Good question.
The first week of the season?
It was really surprising to see Cam Taylor Britt's decision to field the ball at the 2.
Yeah.
I mean, that is really elementary that you don't do that.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to be a football wizard to say don't field the ball at the 2 in that situation.
Right.
Let it go.
Especially, I mean, he's moving backwards.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like he was camped under. I mean, he was fading back as he fielded it at the 2.
That seems like a focus issue to me.
And so does the Martinez fumble. I mean, he was in the pocket. It was breaking down. He had nowhere to go.
Right.
You know, he had nowhere. He was going down, and he reached the ball out in front of him is what it looked like. I mean,
he held the ball loose. He was holding the ball away from his body when you're taught exactly not to do that,
yeah.
right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. Today and previous seasons, no successful adjustments after halftime. Outcoached, Maryland says.
Really. That's not the way. I have a problem with that. Now the nose thing, I got it. It's over the nose. Okay, I was really disappointed with the defense allowing that drive to start the third quarter.
Yeah,
because my thought was at halftime, okay, if they can stop Illinois to begin the third quarter, they can get right back. I mean, they can get right back on their feet.
Yeah,
right. And they did exactly the opposite. They gave up a 14-play, 75-yard drive. Illinois ran the ball 9 times for 41 yards in that drive. Not great, but good enough. They ran it at them, and I thought that was almost it. At that point, I thought at that point it's going to be really hard to come back from 23-9.
Yeah,
the way Nebraska was not running the ball.
Yeah. Yep, no doubt. Luke, good to see you, Luke. Welcome back. Good evening, gentlemen. Wish you would have started the season under the better circumstances. Yeah, thanks, Luke. Adam says, was really feeling good about Frost saying this is his best Nebraska team he had before the game today. After what I saw today, we're nowhere near that. Yeah, Adam, this is sort of like this. I think, to me, this is the central question for Nebraska going forward. It's really hard to convince yourself, I think, if you're a fan and probably if you're a reporter too, if we're being honest, that they've made progress in all of those detailed things. This was just sort of an anomaly because I mean, you could get to the end of this. That's not impossible.
It could happen.
It could happen. But when you look at what the passes look like and then game 1 of what it looked like this year, it's hard to assume that that's where we're going to end up. Frost said after the game, he said, I really believe this group can be special. They've got it in them. It's the best team he's had. He reiterated all that stuff. It just, the rest of it was the same old song and dance.
Right. So what do you do?
Right.
I think it's important. I do think it's important not to overreact.
Yeah.
But you can also underreact.
Yes. Yes.
So, and through all the discussion, you have to keep in mind that a new boss is watching all of it.
Yes.
All right. So that's where we're at. I mean, I think we summed it up pretty well.
Someone just says culp ? Yeah. Uncharacteristic. Didn't miss an extra point last year. Missed 2 today.
20 for 20 last year.
Yeah. When it rains, it pours, I guess.
That was stunning. That was startling.
Frost sort of just in passing made he said after the game, he said, he missed 2 extra points. And he said, I trust him implicitly, Connor Culp, after what he did last year. And he missed 2 today, which isn't like him. And then he goes, that's the only first team all conference player we've had in my 3 years here. So, I mean, that's true. He is. And he missed 2 extra points.
That was a curious comment.
Let's see. And the 2 short punts too, 13 yards and 20. First one from Daniel Cherney was 26 yards, and the last one was 13. Tough. I mean, he's a freshman, but yeah, you gotta have better than that in a big situation. Cam Jurgens had a holding that negated a first down and egregious snap to ruin a drive. Same old story. Yeah, I was surprised. The snap.
Did it ruin the drive?
It did. Well, it didn't actually.
No, it did.
The snap didn't ruin the drive. It put him in 2nd and 24. But I wrote this in the game story. There's all these things like, okay, they scored on that drive, but also on that drive, and they scored a touchdown. But what is that? It's 30 seconds here, 20 seconds there. Like, all that stuff adds up to make a difference when you get the ball back with 54 seconds left.
They thought it was what?
The 4th and then ran it 2 more times after that, and the clock's running the whole time, and it just
attention to detail.
We we've got to pay a little attention to the road tonight to get back to Springfield. So I think we'll wrap it there. Thank you guys so much. This was we've had great participation. It's going to be an interesting couple weeks ahead. We'll be back for sure post game. We're going to try to figure out maybe coming back during the week too. More on that. That we'll put out more on that as we know it. But for now, thank you all for watching. Have a great night. This is Parker and Sipple recapping Nebraska's 30-22 loss to Illinois to open the season here in Champaign. Stay safe. We'll see you soon.